You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW-LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC-LP Conroe, and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony Lynn Collins and Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani. We are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we are here every Tuesday on 106.1 and 104.5 Conroe's FM. And you can also watch us live on Facebook. You can download us on Google Play and iTunes tomorrow. And so we're here today doing a follow-up of a segment that Tony did last week on car theft.
Yes, and I didn't finish. In fact, our guest maybe next week, if I can get her on, is one of the representatives from the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department's Auto Theft Task Force, because I had to meet with them on the theft of our own car. And then I might be able to get one of the people from the DMV, the investigators, on car theft, because they had so much information to provide. But what I wanted to go over briefly, and you can, I think you'll have a lot of questions for me, I hope, is sort of the tale of two cities of car theft. Because in this instance, the reason even this show came up is, my only exposure to car theft previous to this was I represent people that steal cars. So I had an understanding of how they did it.
Right.
And while they are not good people, my job is to make sure they get a punishment that is commensurate with what they did as far as reparations to the people that got their car stolen. So, they need representation.
Right.
But I also learned a lot about car theft in representing these car thieves. And a lot of them are on probation. A lot of them didn't really know a lot about the big scheme, because they were only a small part of the theft ring. So they weren't kind of like the mafia. They didn't know what the other people were doing. They knew that their part of it was a small part in the scheme of stealing cars and selling them. And it's a big, big business.
Oh, I bet.
And in my situation, our car recently got stolen from the doctor's parking lot where my husband works. And we had the car was really, really clean. We had some stuff in it because we hadn't expected the car to be stolen, but it was, close to $1,000 in cash, in just money that I just got to the bank and I was going to use, and I left it in there by accident. I forgot it was in the console. And my beloved custom ice skates were about $3,500 that I'll never be able to break in again at my age. So I needed those. Those were the most important thing to me.
Right.
And then we had a new Rumba. We had just gotten it in the mail, and it was still in the box, but I put it in the back of the Yukon because it was too heavy for me to bring up, 800 feet to our drive. And then Jim took it to work the next day, didn't see it in there. It was dark when he left. And then the car got stolen at noon. And we had expected...
Tony, is this the Yukon that's maroon, the Aggie colors?
No, that is our Tahoe.
Oh, okay.
The Yukon.
Okay.
We like SUVs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another high theft car, which we didn't know.
Right.
And it was amongst many, many high-end Maseratis and not Ferraris.
In the parking lot where it was
a lot of
parked?
Mercedes, a lot of Jaguars and Jaguar, however they pronounce that, Jaguar.
Jaguars.
Yeah. So anyway, there was
say.
a lot of high-end, really expensive cars, and then we had our 2012 Yukon. It's a family car, and of course that was the one that got stolen because it had according to what the police believed, it was the only car that had a space next to it. And when Jim pulled in the morning, it was, only space available. But as people were leaving for lunch, it was an available space next to him. And so the car thieves came in per this very, very far away video that you couldn't see anything other than the activity. They drove in, and within a minute, they had entered the car. The car was leaving. We didn't know what they had done until months later when they recovered it, which was a miracle that they recovered it.
Right.
And of course, by the time when we recovered it, the way they recovered it was it was in the commission. The people driving it were in the commission of stealing an Escalade from another car, and they didn't get that one, but they got ours, and so we got to see it. It was actually running,
Yeah.
and it was very, very damaged. It had been in a wreck. It had some of our stuff was still in it, but not the stuff I wanted. Not my skates, not
Right.
the
The
money,
cash,
not the rumba.
obviously.
But it had a lot of that kind of Hispanic Catholic kind of not really Catholic, but the Morte, whatever that religion is, where they have the skeletons and stuff, all that. It was all Hispanic, lots of over-the-counter drugs, but they were all in Spanish, so I didn't know they were. And what surprised me was that when it was picked up in Fort Bend, is that the police didn't do a thorough investigation there and take and bag the stuff and try to get fingerprints and stuff. They just didn't do that. And so, being a defense attorney, I did. I had gloves on. They let me into the lot. I bagged it all up. I was like ready to find out who had my skates. That was
Right.
the bigger interest.
Right.
And we had not. We had not received an insurance payout because we were haggling with the insurance company over the actual cash value, which we're going to hit on a little bit today. You're going to talk about insurance fraud schemes and why the insurance company doesn't believe you when you tell them your car is stolen. And then they're just renowned, all of them, all state, nationwide, all the way down. That wasn't who we were with. That they don't give you the best value that you're looking for because that's how they stay in business.
Right.
Why should they give you, top dollar unless you've got that, an extra insurance like prong that says I'm going to get, whatever the fair market value is, our replacement value or whatever it is, and that's not what we had. And so as luck would have it, and I don't believe it was luck, I think it may have been, through God's grace, I had all of my rosaries and my miraculous medal and my prayer cards. And when we got the car back, we went and eventually had it detailed. It wasn't, I think we had it towed and it really wasn't running very well, but we got it to a place that detailed it for us. And we asked them to bag everything up with the gloves and everything and don't throw anything out. And one of the few things that they did find was my miraculous medal was still in there. And I'm like, there must be something to it because we got the car back. And so ultimately, we did. We took the car at salvage value and in a smaller insurance payout, and then we went about the business of getting the car repaired, so that we could. And there's a lot of stuff you have to do when you get a salvage value car. It's not insurable anymore if it doesn't
Right.
drive. It can't be. It's not. You can't get it inspected. It's. You have to get it fixed so that it will pass inspection, and then you have to get the title changed so that it is a salvage repaired, so that it can drive. But if you don't get the same insurance benefit, and you probably will never be able to get comprehensive insurance on it again. And so, and then the thieves know you've got the car. I mean, there's a whole litany of things bad about taking a salvage value car, but it was our car. We were the second owner after Jim's cousin, and so it was the
Well,
right
why
thing
is
to do.
it bad if the thieves know you have the car?
Well, according to the Montgomery County Task Force, they probably don't. It's not the only set of keys. When they change the keys out, they know where you live. They'll just steal the car again, and you don't have comprehensive on it.
Oh.
So why not just come steal the car again? They know where you work. They know everything about you. The thieves are not necessarily completely bad people, but their business is stealing your car. They may not injure you, but they're going to get the car back.
Right.
One of the suggestions that the task force said was immediately upon getting your car back, if you elect to keep it in any capacity, whether it be salvage value or driver or whatever, is to get the keys changed. Again. And I thought I didn't even think about that.
Right.
When we recovered the car, there were 4 sets of blank keys in it. This was something that they were planning to use our car as the getaway car, obviously, and that was a ring, and we know that the guy that was driving it didn't just accidentally buy a stolen car, which we'll talk about a little bit later on today, because in the back in the back driver's seat, the key that they broke out in our car lock was all broken out in the back seat. Obviously, you're not going to drive a car for 2 months.
Right, and not look in the back seat.
Yeah, and say,
know
oh,
what's
and
there.
they're all there was boots in there. They were living out of it. Kids' stuff was in there. Of course, the defense that I make as a criminal defense attorney for burglars is, well, they didn't know it was stolen when they had it. The bill of sale was still in the car, and the bill of sale was dated 3 days after it was stolen. So it was a quick flip, but it was a phony bill of sale, obviously, because we found the guy. If there was a real one, it was a car thief because our lock was in the back seat.
Right.
And so our fob still worked, but the key didn't work. Only the new key that they made worked. And so now we need to get that changed too. They had changed all the VINs on it to match a VIN number of a legitimate car. So let me see if that's the one. There's two stories here. Let me think about that a minute. The VIN. Oh, that wasn't it. The VIN was replaced to a different VIN, but the VIN didn't exist. The VIN didn't match. The VIN matched a car that never had a VIN assigned to it.
Did it look authentic when it was replaced?
It looked exactly like the GM. They had this down to a science.
Wow.
And the paper plate for the car sold, the bill of sale that was in the car and the paper plate said it was a 2007 GMC when it was a 2012. And then we learned later through Harris County, so there's 3 different counties now involved, Montgomery, Harris, and Fort Bend, where the car was registered, where the car was stolen in Harris, and where it was recovered in Fort Bend. So we have all different, and I'm surprised it wasn't in a different state, because that's how we couldn't even agree. I don't believe it was in another state. We could have been able to locate the VIN, even though it's national now. There's a National Crime Bureau. But at any rate, it was all pretty quick. And through God's grace, we got our own car back. And that was just a miracle that Fort Bend even caught it and was able to find that it was stolen. Because, and the reason,
so true.
in part, they found because they were able to go to the engine. Okay. Our VIN number had already been moved to a 2007 Mercedes, which didn't, the VIN numbers have, the way they're set up is they have the model, the year, the maker, and where it was. It's a system of numbers, and our VIN number had been put on a Mercedes, not the right year, not the right make, model, nothing. So, and the reason we knew Harris had found our car in part was because Harris County had called us back and asked, is your Mercedes stolen? And we're like, well, no, we had a Yukon stolen. So they put it all together, and we were able to determine that they were using our VIN on a Mercedes that wasn't stolen, but it was our VIN. And so they're not all communicating. You have to do a little bit of legwork on your own if you want to kind of track it down, which is never wise. But I do criminal defense, and I wanted my ice skates, and I still do. And so what we did was you were asking about what the VIN plate looked like. It looked exactly like the GM plate. They knew exactly what they looked like. And when we went to, we thought we could just get it repaired and fixed and get it inspected. Well, it was the phony VIN was still in the windowsill. Okay, and there's like 8 different places where your VIN number is located. You can call the manufacturer of your car if you want to identify where they are, and they should tell you. The task force won't tell you. What I did not know is that the Yukon, and again, they're all in different places, has the VIN number all over the place.
I didn't know that.
The VIN is in the glove box. The VIN is on the side of the car when you open the car. They had cut our VIN number off with a razor blade and left the air pressure tire part of it on there. Of course, I didn't know this until I talked to the task force. It's in the engine. They wouldn't show me where it was, but apparently if you're a guy or a mechanic or something, you know where to look for where on the engine. It is always in the dash. A lot of times it will be on the registration because it's just when you register, it's on there.
Right.
But our registration had been taken off. It wasn't registered. It didn't show the registration. It was registered, but we had it. And it didn't match the VIN that they had on the windshield. When I went to go have it inspected, the inspection, it passed inspection. We had the car completely repaired. But they used the stolen VIN. And so we called Montgomery County, and they said you need to go to 102 Academy and set up an appointment because they need to verify that the VIN in the dash isn't the VIN on the motor. And so we made an appointment. We went up there, and I brought with me the theft report and our title, everything showing it was our car. And everything, they had changed the VIN or removed the VIN everywhere. But the computer had the VIN in it when you like the one you bring it to the auto zone or whatever, and the actual engine still had our VIN. But and then they suggested that we have the VIN, our actual VIN etched in the windows like they do on foreign-made cars. Because thieves don't want to go to that much work once they steal your car. Thieves these days are, from what they told me, many times they don't just chop them up. It's just they can't move them fast enough, and it's very sophisticated now. That most of the time, not most of the time, that's kind of a misstatement, that they will go in and change the computer board so that their key works and they don't even have to change the lock. They pop the hood. And one of their suggestions was, and I'm going to go over this again in a minute, but one of the suggestions to me was to get a hood lock. It's a lot of work, but the hood lock prevents them from changing the computer board so that their key will work immediately. If they're watching you, they're kind of scoping out because there's different people in the car wreck themes or car theft rings. And but in our case, we didn't have a hood lock, and the gal that helped me over at the auto theft zone, and they're all like sheriff's deputies and people that work there, they said to also get the bar for your steering wheel because it's too much work for them.
I've heard that that's like a down and dirty way to protect
and
your
they
car.
said no one wants to do it because it's a lot of work to start your car and it's got the bar on it, but they said it works and it really is a deterrent
and they can see it from outside the
they
car
just
so they don't break the windows.
It's an easy, let's grab and go kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And we're going to go over the other things that they suggested, but that was a big one for them, was etching the windows, the locking the hood, and the bar. It's just theft prevention. And so they checked ours out, and they said that when they went and they were afraid they were going to have to bust out our windshield to get to the GM new VIN number
was there.
because they bolt them in, and they said they don't have a tool to unbolt it because they bolt them in before they put the windshield on when they manufacture the car. And but they said sometimes it looks so authentic that it's just glued, and lo and behold, it was glued in, and it took them a long time to get it out, but it looked. You couldn't even tell looking in the windshield.
Wow, I had no idea.
It was that good, and so the gal over at they inspected. They said it was a stolen car. That they said that more than likely they gave me an inspection, a law enforcement inspection certificate, and now I've got to go to another location. I think it's in Houston, maybe the closest one over by Greens Point, where they're going to do an additional inspection to replace the VINs. I can't replace my own VIN. They have to create it. Law enforcement does, and they get it through the car manufacturers. She said more than likely, like your Social Security number, a car has a VIN, that they would have to give us an all new VIN. And so right now our car doesn't. It's a recovered stolen. And we got it, the registration and stuff, all that stuff done, and we've already got the insurance. So it's no longer an insurance issue, but we're having to go forward to clean it up. It wouldn't have been that easy for us had we had a loan on the car, had it not been recovered, had it been owned several times. We had such clean title.
Right.
And kind of knew exactly what to do that we were able to go forward with doing that. And that's kind of the tail where we're at. The other thing that happened with the car was we learned that the car thief was not legal. He was here from Mexico. He's Mexican national. He told the people that arrested him in Fort Bend, he was arrested for unauthorized use of a vehicle. Not stealing it, but unauthorized use, so that kept him for like a day. When he went to Fort Bend, he told them that he didn't have any ID, but he gave him his name or a derivative of his name, fortunately for me, and he gave them a false birth date. But he filled out the bond information to get a PR bond and to get a court appointed. And so when he filled that out, he put a lot of false information on it because I looked at it. When I called the detective that found our car, I had to make all these phone calls. I said, I want the name of the person because I'm still looking for my skates. That's all I care about. Where are my skates?
Right.
And I guess I was going to talk about the tow yard thing. That was a whole different ball game of trying to even identify our car because you don't know once it's stolen if it's yours because they've stripped it of all its identity other than the color.
So you couldn't tell when you went into the tow yard?
Well, the tow yard has
that's my car.
It was in Fort Bend. It was an hour and a half from here. That's where they recovered it. It had big steel fences, so you couldn't see in. It was very well, but you could kind of see in through some little holes, but you couldn't see from far away other than it looked like our car, and our car was in perfect shape, and it had some dents in it, so it may not have been. The hitch looked different. It just looked different when I was kind of peering in. And so I had to wait, and I had to go back twice. It was just a mess. Tow yard won't, for the insurance, wouldn't tow it unless you were there, give them cash. I mean, it was just a mess. And so we finally got in, but when I got in, I knew it was our car because my stuff was in it. Our A&M umbrellas they were
Umbrella.
still using. I didn't know that my miraculous medal was in there. It was kind of hidden, but they had my face mask. I had custom face masks. Those were there.
Right.
My law office pins with my law office name and address were on it. It's like, why would they keep that in there? And then a multitude of other things. But it was clearly our car once I got in it. They had the cup holder I'd given Jim for Christmas. And it was just our car, you knew. And it was a mess. It was dirty. It was awful. But they had a lot of their own stuff in it.
And had been crashed a couple of
It
times.
had been at a wreck. When we tried to start it, only the keys where the guy was arrested. Our keys didn't work anymore other than to enter into it. So we knew that was another reason we knew our fob worked. And when we, but she was able to start it and all the check-in, it did start. The check engine light was on. It was a mess. They had put 15,000 extra miles on it in a short period of time. But we found the bill of sale in there. And that's where the first, and the paper plate that was on it, that was the first cue to me to be able to go forward and sort of see what was going on. You don't normally when your car's stolen, you don't get that inside information because it's not
Right.
recovered. And usually the insurance company takes over once you say it's a total loss. You don't even get to say anything.
Do you have any idea how many stolen vehicles are recovered and
I had
returned?
that on last week's show.
Does
but
that ring a bell?
The
I know
percentage-
it's tiny.
The percentage is lower, but it's not as low as I thought it was. And
Really?
I can't remember right off what it was.
And I do remember now that my daughter did have her car stolen, and it was actually returned to us too, which was a huge miracle because I remember at that time knowing that the percentage of cars that are stolen that
Now,
are
I'm
actually.
just real curious now. What happened? What do you recall about that?
My daughter was driving a little Honda. I believe it was a four-door little Honda.
Civic and Accords are like the number 1 and 2
I
stolen.
know. And this, I believe, was an Accord, but it was like a 1996. It was old, and this was 10 years ago. And she had left the keys in the car with the engine running at
That's
the
the first
outside
thing
of
they
an
tell you
IHOP.
not to do.
Well, sure. She wasn't thinking clearly. And
Well, no, she was thinking people are honest.
and
I got to
so-
run an errand real
yeah,
quick.
and so when she came out, the car was gone. And then 2 weeks later, the car was actually returned to us.
Okay.
And it was in great condition.
But
the
where,
guy
how
had
was it
been
returned?
The police found it.
Where?
This was in Colorado. This was in Fort Collins, Colorado. The police found the car and called us up and said, "Hey, we found it." The guy was living out of the car. The guy who'd stolen it or had stolen it was living out of the car, and they just got all of his junk out of the car and gave us the car back.
Wow. And so it was running and everything. But weren't y'all afraid that he knew where you lived and could make
didn't-
copies of the keys?
Those things didn't even enter our mind back then. We were so grateful to have the car back, and it was in good condition.
Wow. Did you have insurance on it? Did the insurance company try to pay out? Or
We had insurance on it. I don't remember the details of that. I wasn't the one dealing with the insurance company.
Okay. Well, they had offered us, I think I said this before, an actual cash value. And the reason we didn't accept that because we didn't think we were going to get the car back for sure.
Right.
It just,
Well,
you know.
wasn't it like 2 or 3 months?
It was. They stole it on January 15th. Of course, to add to the timeline, it already had a bill of sale by January 18th, but it was a phony bill of sale, and they didn't recover it until it was in the commission of stealing another car as the getaway car on March 2nd.
March. Okay, so we got a month and a half.
Right, but they had the insurance company had after a month they had already done the evaluations and were offering us a certain cash value, but we couldn't replace it. It was in perfect running condition. It was like perfect. Jim kept this thing like the best car you can imagine. He drove it. Everything was clean. It ran. We kept up with the best synthetic oil, and it
Well,
was
you
just,
drove it all the time too.
yeah, well,
Tony.
not as much as Jim did. And the only reason my skates were even in it was because we were maintaining the Tahoe at the dealership because we maintain all our older cars. And I had gone skating the night before, and I was working on I was getting ready to work on my axles, and I was all excited about it. The rinks were still open after Christmas, and so I'd left my skates in the car, thinking the next day I was still going to need it. And then I would never do that, especially in Jim's car. But and then he took it to work, and I didn't. Have skates will travel. Skaters, no matter how old you are, you always have your skates with you. And I left him in there thinking, oh, he went to work with my skates. What if I want to skate? Not that I would, but what if I wanted to? And then I got stolen, and the very first thing he told me was the car got stolen. I was like, my skates were in the car. Not how are you, or was it robbery? Or it's like, where are my skates?
Were you hurt? my skates?
I need those skates now.
That's right.
And but fortunately, it was not a robbery. It was a
Right.
theft. And so what happened was, she came in to the vehicle. Go back to the story. We were able to determine it was mine. It had a lot of my stuff in it, and then I left the car because it wasn't. We couldn't drive it in the condition it was in. So we left the car, and then the insurance company, the tow truck drivers, we can't get into it. They're not there. And finally, it was just like, oh my gosh, they towed it up to a collision place up here near Spring.
From the tow place?
Yeah. Finally, USA
Okay.
got it towed to because it didn't run. We
Right.
needed to get it. We needed an inspection from USAA to come determine whether it was a total loss or not, and because it was recovered. And but we were arguing with the value. Once again, we're like, what is the value? And they never would give it to us. And finally, I was like, you're way ahead of the game. The car is recovered. Why don't you give us the value? And they didn't. And finally, we said, well, we want the car. And so we got, kind of a little amount of money for the value, but we got the car back, and so we fixed it. Mm-hmm. And then we to move on up, we were talking about the car theft. When I learned after talking to the detectives where they were, so this guy's in Fort Bend County. They released him on a PR bond the next day with no money
How
at
much?
all.
Yeah.
He was
zeroed down.
He had an ice hole, but they didn't use it. And so he got released, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to the guy to find out where my skates are. And so I said, well, and I thought, the guy said he probably didn't give us the right name. And I'm like, and then fortunately Fort Bend did a good job. They got our car. I was happy about that.
Right.
They stopped him. They
Right.
caught him. They did charge him with 3 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, all involving the same incident. It wasn't car theft, but when it did stop him, and I got a name. So then I thought, this guy's done this before. Clearly, he was the getaway driver. And so I looked him up in Harris and in Galveston and in Montgomery, and I got a hit, so to speak, in Harris because there was a similar name. It wasn't the exact name and a similar birthday. So I looked into it, and I thought, I'm sure this is this guy. And he was set for car theft, set for trial from 3 years prior. And he had an ice hold back from 2012 and been released again. It was just, he kept getting caught,
And then
assuming this
released.
was the same guy, and released. But I thought, I know it's the same guy. And he had kidnapping, and he had a whole bunch of felonies and stuff. But he was illegal here in the United States that ICE didn't care about, that had let come back in and released him and no hold on him anymore, and had been given the wrong name to Fort Bend, who released him. And Harris had released him on a bond with his court-appointed attorney. So he was just out there stealing more cars with his ring. And I was just like, I'm going to stop this. And so what I did was I looked at all the bond information from Harris, and I made the connection. He had the same cell phone number. Nothing else matched except for his name was a derivative, and his birth date was like 2 days off. But the signature was the same, and the cell phone number was the same. And I called Harris's prosecutors, who I knew, and I was like, you need to revoke this bond. I need my ice skates back. They were like, whatever. You're here for the ice skates. I'm like, yes. So they really stole the car of the wrong person. I wanted my skates back. I was going to find. And so fortunately, the prosecutor was angry too because he'd gotten a PR bond. They didn't want that. And, we're usually on the other side. We're usually prosecutors let our guys out. In this case, I'm like, revoke that bond. I know it's the same guy. And there was a massive black thong in the car, amongst other clothing and stuff. And I was like, some fat girl was having sex with this guy or somebody in this car. And so I told him, I'm like, look, I will testify for you. This is this week. I said, I will testify that, this everything that I found, and to show that he knew this was a stolen car. And if he wants to say it's not him, I bet I have his DNA on this thong. And, so let's just go there. And they never called me, but they got the bond revoked. So he's back in jail.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
Is he in jail now?
He's in jail now. Uh-huh. And because
Have you gone to talk to him and say, where the heck are my skates?
I am not going to get that involved. Because
I will go and talk to him for you,
because
Tony.
well, good. He's a thief, though.
He
And
won't
he's
even know
lawyered
who
up.
I
He
am.
probably won't let me in the jail and with all this demon stuff. More than likely, he won't speak to me anyway because he would be, his rights would be breached if he said anything. And
Right.
he's probably been told by people all the way up the ring,
Don't talk
die
to him.
before you talk or whatever. But or maybe he's the ringleader. I don't know. He was a car driver. I doubt he's the
Right.
ringleader. But so he got his bond revoked, and what I learned, what I told the prosecutors in Harris is this guy did not need a court appointed, and he definitely didn't need a PR bond. He just hired the most expensive law firm in Houston to represent him in Fort Bend.
Really?
Yeah, right. And so when I was like, you can't let him out, I wanted to see what he looked like because I was following the Fort Bend cases. They said, well, he lawyered up, he didn't even have to come in. And then I looked at what his lawyer was. I'm like, this is an expensive law firm. And how does he afford that? He lawyered up with the best guy in town. And so that's what I told I'm like, look at this, how is he affording this? Because he's stealing cars and selling them to pay for his defense. And so the whole thing just is coming down right now. I don't know what has happened. But in the interim, so there's a different angle to this with all these different people I'm talking with, I made a report to the DMV because this guy stole our car, and there was more damages than we were able to recover. And when I saw the paper plate, I was able to identify the phony dealership, but it wasn't phony. It was legitimate. So I looked into the Secretary of State, determined who the dealership was. It had been set up 6 months before. All I still want is my
The dealership had been set
It
up.
had been set up to the Secretary of State. You have to have a dealership bond of $25,000 to set up a dealership.
Really?
And I knew that my car had been stolen with a phony plate, and so I wanted to find out who
this
ran this dealership. So I
dealership,
looked
right.
at the dealership. Wasn't even real. If it was real, it was just it looked like an apartment complex. It was out in Southwest Houston. It looked like it was just a placeholder. And so I went down to my car criminals and I talked to them in person. I'm like, do y'all know this guy? Do you know anything about this? I'm like, oh, yeah, he's a great guy. I'm like, he's not a great guy. Oh, no, he is a great guy. I mean, he's not a great guy. He stole my car. I said, I want my skates back and I'll let up, whatever it took. And they said,
Right.
They said, well, don't get him in trouble. He's got a family to feed and stuff. I'm like, yeah, well, so do we. And he shouldn't be stealing cars to do it. He should get a real job. And he said, well, he didn't do anything but sell the plates. It's a paper mill. They go on the internet. They sell the plates to these people. He doesn't even know the guy that stole your car, and he makes a little commission off each sale. I'm like, good.
But this is the guy who stole your car. You were asking about the dealership guy.
Yeah, the dealership guy was not
Oh,
this. He's not.
okay.
It's like I can't make the connection. But I did have a paper plate on
Right.
my stolen car.
Right.
It had a dealership name, and the dealership name, I'll go ahead and say it because they're under investigation, was High Country of Houston LLC. So I looked them up, found out who the owner was when they were set up, who their agent was. It looked legit. Found out that this guy, looked for his name everywhere. His name, if this is the same person that set it up, he's got a whole bunch of different names with hyphens and stuff. And so I asked my friend, he goes, he knows the guy. He's not my friend. He was a client of clients, kind of down the deep.
Right.
But I went in person. I was looking for my skates, looking at dumpsters and stuff. And so he said, no, he just has a paper mill. They sell the plates, and then what they do, once that one goes out of business, somebody else picks up another one. And so anytime you see a paper plate, it may be a stolen car. Not necessarily, but in this case it was. And we were able to learn that he had done this before because
Right.
my friend had bought a car that was stolen with the same plate. And it was like, what is going on with this little hole-in-the-wall place? And so I looked him up. I couldn't find his name. I did all my little research as, defense attorney doing all the work. And my friend said that my friend, far removed, said, oh no, they just sell the plates. He won't even know who the person was that sold this car or has the car. But I said, yeah, but he put his name on it. So, and he gave them a plate to be able to do it. And
Right.
so I want reparations here. And so I was watching the Harris County live streams, and it happened upon a trial where this insurance company had sued the bond company under the bond. They want, because it's only a $25,000 bond to be a dealership, but it's there to protect people when their cars are being stolen, or when they do bad things where they won't give you the title. You can sue the dealership under the bond that they have. Small bond, but still, they'll get their bond revoked if it's bad dealing through the DMV, and that's how you get some sort of
Relief.
recompense, right? And so I made a report, and the detective for the Department of Motor Vehicles called me this morning and said, well, he's already under, or that dealership, but it's really just a one person thing. He's already under investigation, and so we can't go forward with it. We have other options. I said, yeah, I'm going to sue under the bond. He goes, great, sue under the bonds. He goes, but you need to do it before we yank his license. And so I'm going to sue under the bond because I was watching this Harris County case where there was the summary judgment in favor of the person suing under the bond, but the bond company had a top-of-the-line company representing them, and I'm trying to think of the name of the company.
A law firm representing
Yeah,
them?
they had a top of the line law company. The bonding company didn't want to give up the bond money. The dealership, this particular dealership, well, the one I was watching was a big dealership, unlike the
The
one
one
that I
you
was
were
dealing
dealing with.
right? Which may be the only way we
Well,
could
what
get.
did the dealership not want to do?
The dealership didn't want to have to give the bond up. They wanted their bond. The bonding company, the dealership said, "We don't have any money left, or whatever. Take it." So the dealership said, "Well, whatever we've got, you can go to our bond to pay back the money that was lost by whatever the bad deed was." And the bond company had a really expensive law firm, and the bond company said, "We're not giving that up." The bond only cost them like $600, and so the bond company was out a lot of money. They're like, "No, we're not going to give that up because you can't make the connection," or whatever the argument was. And it's on advisement through that court, and I'm following it. But what it did was it showed me the format to use to be able to go after the bonding company and who their agent was, because it was a current case. So I was doing that, and I thought that was kind of interesting that I just happened to be watching a case. So this is not uncommon to buy a car, whether it be through a dealership or through an individual, and learn it is stolen, or you look at the title right away.
Is that the tale of two cities? The two cities is when you get a car stolen, and the second
the
city
tale
is
of
when
two
you
cities.
purchase
the other car. So
stolen
I've
vehicle?
just told you the example of our situation where our car was stolen, and me trying to find out how we could have reparations, and then going through all the little, finding out all the stuff about stolen cars and what we had to do, versus the tale of two cities as the other side of it. My friend just came up to me and said, "I bought this car. It was a really good deal, but I'm afraid it might be stolen. Everything matches. I did all my homework. I got the Carfax. I had it checked out by a mechanic. It works fine. It was under the market by $10,000, but it was a $35,000 car, so it wasn't
Maybe
necessarily
somebody wanted
stolen.
to sell it, right?
It looked like everything looked legitimate on it." I paid cash, so he didn't do what he should have done,
Which is
was,
what?
Don't say it's the deal of the century. Do have a mechanic look at all the VIN numbers. The Carfax, if he had really looked at it, and he didn't speak English that well, showed that the last owner was not the person he was purchasing it from. And it also showed that the person he purchased it from, the owner, the alleged owner, the one that sold it to him, wasn't there in person. According to the auto task force personnel, they said that it is not uncommon at all for a person with a stolen vehicle to show up with the driver's license and a power of attorney and a bill of sale, but the person selling it is not the person whose name's on the title.
Oh, okay. And that's what happened
Yeah,
to
so that's
this
very
person.
common. That's what happened to this person. They said the girl was working that day, but it was a good deal. She had a couple other people that were interested in selling it. Deal of the century.
Wait, he got it from a car dealership?
No, he got it from an individual, but the individual.
The owner was supposedly working that day.
Yeah,
and so this
but the
representative
title that he
came.
got was like she was selling it through a dealership, but they were just going to sell it. And the paper plate was High Country of Houston, LLC. When I saw that right after I just discovered this, I'm like, what is going on with this? I mean, how often could this be happening that this is Fort Bend, Harris, Montgomery, and I'm just seeing this in Montgomery. And so so everything matched for this guy other than the big red flags. The red flags where the price was too low, the actual seller wasn't there. The signature looked kind of similar, but it wasn't exact to me, but people sign their names differently. The bad thing was he gave up, cash to get the car. The title looked completely legitimate. The paper, it was a title. It felt legitimate. It had the embossing on it. It had a bill of sale. Everything looked, it was the same make, model, and everything. And so I said, well, let me look into it. And then I found the car. It wasn't reported stolen through any of the agencies. But the car title showed that the last owner was a dealership. So I looked on the dealership's inventory, just goofing off, and it was there. So I called the dealership, being my friend's friend, saying...
So they didn't know that the car had been
no,
stolen?
but then I found out the car that then had not been stolen. They were like, come see it. The VIN matches. We looked it all out. We checked it out. It ends up that it was a VIN clone. The VIN, that they just waited for the exact make, model, year, and everything to be sort of available 2 years later. And I told my guy, I said, your VIN matches this car. There's 2 VIN numbers. And I said, they're telling me it's not stolen, but I'm not letting them in on it because I didn't want to you're right, raise the ire of the dealership. They were just, and I might do that now. But so my guy went and he looked at the engine, and the engine didn't match. So I put the engine number in, and it was stolen 2 years prior in Harris County. And so,
wow, what a sophisticated racket.
yeah, it's very sophisticated. They waited until almost an identical in make, model, year, the way it looked, everything. This car I looked at that my friend had was identical to the car that was on the dealership lot. Identical. Except it was just off by a little bit. And so it was a Van clone, though, because we were able to identify that. And his little GM faceplate was perfect. It looked exactly like mine did, and mine was a phony. And so I asked the auto task force, what do you do? I mean, he bought a stolen car, but he doesn't want to be arrested driving a stolen car. And they said, well, he's a victim also. And so they said, don't drive the car. You have a couple of options, but the main thing is you need to bring it in because we're not going to arrest him, but we need to look at it to verify it's stolen. They didn't want to tell me where they could look for where the VIN numbers are, but my guy had already found it, so we knew it was. And it was in the National Crime Database as stolen. And so, of course, if you buy a car from Carvana or dealership or anybody, you need to have a mechanic look where all of those VINs are to make sure they all match, because these were so sophisticated that you did everything you were supposed to do. Well, there were some red flags, but we did everything we were supposed to do.
Right.
And we still had a bad time. We knew our car was stolen, but we wouldn't have known it. And nobody buying it except the people stole it were sophisticated, and our lock was in the back seat, and there was a lot of telltale
all
signs.
the evidence, but you wouldn't have known aside
we
from
wouldn't
that.
have known. They could have sold it to someone else, and it would never have been known if they cleaned
in
it up.
Tennessee or something.
Yeah, but they would never have known, but for it was being used in the commission of crime. And so we wouldn't have been able to. The guy would have been arrested and then been cut loose, or he would. I'm a victim, whatever. And so what happened is they said that he needs to bring the car in. They're going to identify it as stolen because the engine's not going to match. I found the crime database. But he can have a hearing by one of the JP courts if he wants to try to keep it. I paid for it. It's mine. No one's claiming it. But the truth of the matter is it's going to be turned over. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, what if he goes to the true owner and asks to buy it? Well, that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to contact the true owner that it was stolen by. The problem is it had a loan on it, and it was an insured. You have to have an insured if you have a loan on it. And because it shows up in the database who has the lien. More than likely, this car was stolen. The one that had the lien was some dealership. Then they turned it over to insurance, who now the real owner is the insurance company, and they're not going to flip it over. They're going to want to take it because it's in perfect condition and resell it, or the dealership is going to resell it.
So this guy is just out $25,000.
Not if I can sue the same phony dealership under their bond. I'm less interested in becoming whole for myself, other than a little bit of money I was out, than he is. He's out cash.
Right.
He has babies. This is so unfair to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he should have known, but anyway. So what I want to say real quick is,
you say that he should have known, and I'm just thinking about our listeners, and you've said this a couple of times, but he should have known because the price was too low, because what are the three things? He should have known the price was too
the
low.
actual owner that owned the car,
Right.
that was on the Carfax that he ran, was not the person there in
Selling
person signing
him the
it.
car.
Right.
And was there one other thing?
Let me think of what it was. The big ones for him were the price was too low, the owner wasn't there. The Carfax didn't show the person selling it was the actual person on the car. And when I looked up the owner, this particular owner was in jail. She was in the Harris County Jail at the time that the dealership was showing the title was changing. So the owner was even a criminal. So you have to look up that too, who's selling it.
yeah,
So there was a lot of red flags on that. But he wouldn't have known. He barely
No.
speaks English.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of things you need to do. But those are the main ones that he could have seen, knowing that he was buying a stolen car. The big one was the price was too good.
Yeah. Right.
But everything else checked out. It wasn't even. It's still not shown as stolen. Because there's a VIN clone.
Right.
Okay, so here's what you do want to do real quick. We have 2 minutes according to Station Manager Dick. How to prevent your car from being stolen. So that was the first tale of two cities. Keep your vehicle locked at all times, even while driving. Someone can open your door.
Right.
When parked, never leave your keys in the car. Close all windows and the sunroof because they can get in. Never leave your car running and unattended. Too easy.
Like my poor daughter.
Crime of opportunity. Avoid leaving valuables inside your vehicle where passersby can see them because you're just tempting the devil. Do not leave your vehicle title in the car by any stretch
No
of the imagination.
kidding.
They'll use that on selling. Not even that one's another one. They're so good. This title that was phony that we had looked so legitimate. I looked at it, an attorney. I've seen them. It looked completely legitimate.
Wow.
The feel and everything. Too often a car thief is pulled over, gets away from the police because he's got the title and the registration of the car. Know where you're going. Avoid high crime areas, even if the alternative route takes longer. Install an anti-theft system in your vehicle, even if it doesn't have one. Thieves are reluctant to steal vehicles if they know the cars can be recovered quickly. Thieves prefer to work in the dark. Be particularly cautious at night about where you park your car. Parking well are still good today. Look around, be aware of your surroundings, especially in garages, parking lots, and gas stations. You want to be where a traffic attendant can see it or somebody can see it. Don't park cheap like I do because you're asking for your car to be stolen. Have your car's vehicle registration etched in each of the windows. Car thieves want to get off cheap. They don't want to go replacing the gas with your VIN in the window.
Okay, Tony, Dick is telling us that we need to wrap up. We want to thank you guys for listening. We want to remind you to
Serve God by serving others.
we'll see you next week.